Good morning. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Do we have any public speakers?
Surprisingly, we don't, Mr. Chairman.
Good. Let's get right on to it. It's a new day. Good morning and welcome to the MTA Board meeting. Before we begin this morning, I'd like to take a moment to talk about a great story that I don't believe received enough press coverage. It happened about a month ago when two MTA police officers, Patrick Rydell, Kenneth Wilson, who were here with us today, saw a fire while on routine patrol while in Westbury out on Long Island. They immediately called Nassau Police Department and Fire Rescue, but this is where the story goes from ordinary to extraordinary. Instead of waiting for the fire department, these officers decided to take action. Now, these guys aren't firefighters. They don't have fire suits or any fire equipment, but they didn't say that's not our job. They entered the building, eventually found 3 people inside, 2 adults and 1 5-year-old child. They quickly removed all 3 to safety down 3 flights of stairs. The Westbury Fire Department took over from there, extinguishing the fire and ensuring that no other people were injured. Last week was National Police Week, and I'd like to take a moment to recognize not only the extraordinary courage of these 2 officers, but also to recognize the service of all of our officers who put their lives on the line every single day. Officers Rydell and Wilson are examples of MTA Police Department at its very best, and that, along with what they do every day, deserves to be celebrated more often. So today, on behalf of everyone at the MTA, I'd like to present Officers Rydell and Wilson with these 2 small tokens of our appreciation, 2 heroism awards inscribed with their names for their bravery, for their service, and for a job well done. If Officers Rydell and Wilson could come up, I'd appreciate it. Wilson, there you go. Congratulations. Where's the chief? Come on up, Chief. Come on. Congratulations. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you. Great.
Gentlemen, just slide over a little bit, please.
Whose wife is here?
Yes,
Whose wife? Yeah, she's coming up.
Can you stay there for a minute?
Sure.
So that these stills come in? Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it very much. Oh, wait a minute, guys. Chief, thank you. I'd also like to say a few words about 2 longtime members of the MTA family, Linda Kleinbaum and Charlie Monheim. Linda is retiring at the end of this month after a truly remarkable 22-year career with the MTA. She started here as Deputy Director of Planning, moved through the ranks to her current job as Deputy Executive Director of Administration, or more importantly, she's in charge of MTA's $24 billion 5-year capital program. It's a testament to her leadership that today our capital program is more efficient and effective today than ever before. In fact, under her guidance, we've cut more than $2 billion out of the program by working smarter and finding better ways to bring these projects to life. Charlie Monheim had 2 successful stints here at the MTA. His first tour of duty was at the New York City Transit Authority, where he was our subway system's chief mechanical officer, and then from 1991 through 1996, he served as vice president in charge of buses. He rejoined the MTA in 2009 as chief operating officer, leading a technological revolution the likes of which our transit system and transportation system have not seen. Among the many projects, Charlie helped bring countdown clocks to more than 200 subway stations, worked tirelessly to introduce services such as MTA Bus Time, which lets our customers simply look at their cell phone or smartphone to see when the next bus is coming. Both Linda and Charlie have made tremendous contributions, not only to the MTA, but to our entire city and state, through the work which has advanced the overall transportation network. They worked in different areas of the MTA, but they share a few traits in common. They're both incredibly hard workers. They both put our customers first for every decision they made, mostly in part because they are our customers. In fact, Charlie has never even owned a car. and they both earn their reputations as creative thinkers and people who just get things done, plain and simple. So today, for all of these reasons and more, I'd like to say thank you to both of them on behalf of everyone at the MTA. Thank you for your service. You will be missed. Thank you. Moving forward, the minutes of last month's meeting have been distributed to all the members. Are there any corrections or admissions? If not, I'm taking a motion. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. I'm now happy to turn the floor over to Vice Chairman Andrew Saul, who also chairs the Finance Committee, for our Finance Committee report. Andrew?
Thank you, Joe. There are two action items this month. The first action item is to approve the appointment of TD Securities as an eligible remarketing agent. The second action item is to approve the issuance of station maintenance billing to New York City and the counties for the period April 1st, 2011 to March 31st, 2012, as described on pages 22 to 26 in the materials distributed for this meeting. The committee recommends these actions, and I move them.
Second. Any questions or comments? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
There are 4 competitive procurements in the total amount of $5.8 million. The committee recommends these procurements, and I move them.
Do you have a second? Any questions or comments? All in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
There are no non-competitive procurements or ratifications. There are 4 real estate action items which are described on pages 47 to 58 in the materials distributed for this meeting. The committee recommends these real estate items, and I move them.
There's been a second. Any questions or comments? There being none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Joe, that concludes our report.
Thank you, Andrew. Yes.
Yes. My understanding is that there's a budget hearing down at City Hall today, the City Council, with the MTA being one of the agencies involved. And in preparation for that meeting, Councilwoman Debbie Rose and I met last night, and we had a discussion about some of our needs. And she and I kicked around an idea that you and I have actually discussed about requesting, when the City of New York seeks to know, seeks from us what they can do to help us, and there are many things they can do to help us, but there's specifically a need to address what I call 3 of our big problems, and that is, number 1, the safety of our passengers, number 2, and their property, number 2, the safety of some of our employees, and third, as highlighted in the Staten Island Advance story, the bleeding and hemorrhaging of fares with people getting on our buses and not paying. The Advance story, as many of you have read, suggested as many as 18% of people were getting on some of these buses and not paying, which amounts to a tremendous loss of revenue for us, which if we had the issue of service cuts would be a fairly easy one. So I would request that if it's not already in the testimony of those of us from the MTA who are going to appear, and in our communications, perhaps with, if we know anybody at the Division of Budget, that money be requested for increasing police presence on our operations, so that we essentially could have another Triple Crown winner where we're able to take care of our passengers, our employees, and provide service for all New Yorkers. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for those comments. I will tell you our testimony is quite brief because there are no discretionary funds coming from the City of New York, and every time that I meet with a member of council, I remind them that they have every opportunity to provide member items, as Councilmember Rose would probably mention to you last night. But I will make sure that testimony today includes the need for more increased NYPD presence. Thank you. Okay. And now the report from the Transit Committee. Chairman Mark LeBeau.
Mr. Chairman, the Transit Committee met on Monday.
The Budget Director's here.
And reports the following. There is one action item, which is to obtain board approval to add ADA accessibility to the Dyckman Street Station project. and to add it to the 2010-2014 capital program. The project total value is $13.07 million, and approval is sought to advance this project into the construction phase concurrent with the station normal replacement currently underway. The committee recommends this action, and I move it.
Is there a second? Second. All in favor? Any questions or comments? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any noes? Motion carries.
And there are 14 procurement actions totaling $46.9 million. First, there is one non-competitive procurement for MTA New York City Transit in the amount of $200,000. The committee recommends this procurement, and I move it. Second.
That motion's been seconded. Do we have any questions or comments? There being none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
There are 3 competitive procurements, all for MTA New York City Transit, in the total amount of $22.9 million. The committee recommends these procurements, and I move them.
Do I have a second? Second. Any questions or comments? All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
And there are 10 ratifications, 3 for MTA New York City Transit and 7 for MTA Capital Construction, in the total amount of $23.8 million. And the committee recommends these ratifications, and I move them.
Second.
Matter's been seconded. Are there any questions or comments? There being none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
This concludes transit.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
This month I chaired the meeting on the Bus Operations Committee. There is one non-competitive procurement in the amount of $30.1 million. This contract modification is for the purchase of 54 over-the-road buses from Motor Coach Industries, Inc. to replace buses beyond their useful life. This award is being issued as part of a settlement agreement in a bankruptcy proceeding that will preserve MCI's warranty obligation to the New York City Transit Authority for buses previously purchased from MCI under this contract. The committee recommends this procurement, and I move it.
Second.
Motion's been seconded. Are there any questions or comments? There being none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. There are no competitive procurements or ratifications. This is the end of the Bus Committee report. I now would like to turn it over to Jim Sidor for the report from the Metro North LARR Committee.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Mr. North of Long Island Railroad Committee. Met this month and reports the following. There's one action item. The item is to authorize the MTA Real Estate Department and the Long Island Railroad to enter into all agreements necessary to effectuate Phase 1 of the Moynihan Station Development Project as described on pages 87 and 88 of the materials distributed for this meeting. The committee recommends this action, and I move it.
Second. Are there any questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
There are 15 procurement actions in a total amount of $50.51 million. There are 5 non-competitive procurements, all for Metro North Railroad, in a total amount of $21.73 million. The committee recommends these procurements, and I move them.
Motion's been seconded. Are there any questions or comments? There being none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
There are 8 competitive procurements, 5 for Metro North Railroad and 3 for the MTA Capital Construction Company, in a total amount of $27.2 million. The committee recommends these procurements, and I move them.
Second. Any questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
There are 2 ratifications, one for Metro North Railroad and one for the Long Island Railroad, in a total amount of $1.6 million. The committee recommends these ratifications, and I move them.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
This concludes our report.
Thank you, Jim. Next, Commissioner Paley will present the report of the Bridges and Tunnels Committee. Mitch?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. The Bridges and Tunnels Committee met this month and reports the following. There is one non-competitive procurement in the amount of $200,040. The committee recommends this procurement, and I move it.
My item's been seconded. Are there any questions or comments? There being none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
And there are 7 competitive procurements in the total amount of $18.67 million. The committee recommends these procurements, and I move them.
Are there a second? That's seconded. Any questions or comments? There being none, all in favor say aye. 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 Any opposed? Motion carries.
And there are no ratifications, and this concludes the report.
Thank you, Mitch. Now I'd like to entertain a motion to convene an executive session to discuss matters relating to collective bargaining negotiations. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. We're in executive session. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Chairman, I have a question. On Monday, MTA acknowledged that the FTA had been right in their assessment that ESET access was behind schedule. FTA still says now, as of the last report, that 2nd Avenue subway won't be done until February 2018. Can you comment on their analysis of that? Is that going to be something we hear about in a year that is also behind schedule?
The answer is no. I don't expect that to happen. Things are proceeding in the 2nd Avenue subway as we projected it a year or so ago, and we so said at the committee meeting.
So you don't agree with their assessment that it won't be done until
No,
2018?
the thing that concerned us the most about 2nd Avenue subway is working with the community, and we are, and working with the community concerns, regarding the blasting and various different other dust-related issues, which we have very much dealt with, and we'll be giving out information shortly. We're working with the local officials, both elected and community leaders, on all of the analysis that we've been doing regarding the air quality that's there. But no, I'm very comfortable that we will be proceeding as planned.
Thank you.
Greg?
What's your message for council later today? They're having a hearing on the administration's allotment of money for transportation.
I encourage you to look at the budget and notice that there is no money allotted. Therefore, I'm not sure how to answer that question.
Why should New York City be responsible or kick in some money?
Shouldn't the question be, why are they asking us to testify at a budget hearing where they're not providing us budget money? Next.
They do provide some money for MTA bus, and in the past there has been a substantial, there has been some amount of money given.
As you recall, in 2004 or 5, when the city of New York took over the buses from the private entities in the Bronx and in Queens and other places like that, they turned it over to the city. They turned it over to the MTA to manage through a contract, and inside that contract they provide the amount of monies necessary to run it. It's just a relationship we have with them. There's no discretionary funding that is coming from the city.
Well, and should there be? Is the testimony today going to be, we need money from the city?
No, the testimony is going to be very short and brief, and we're there to answer their questions.
You were going to add into the statement today?
No, I did not say that. What I said was every time I see a member of City Council, I remind them that when they receive discretionary funds, that we are a great place to put discretionary money. And that's what I said. We will not be altering our testimony.
Okay, so the MTA is not requesting funding from the City Council for additional police on buses?
The time to do that would have been before the mayor puts out the budget. That's not the point of this. The point is to answer any particular questions that member of councils have about service. That's really the point of this hearing. It should be away from the budget, but nonetheless, we are complying with their request to come on down and talk.
Is there anything you can tell us about contract negotiations?
They are proceeding.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Can you answer your own question you just asked before? Why do you think the City Council is asking you to testify at a budget hearing if you don't get money? You said that's the question we should be asking. Can you give an answer
I think
to that?
they're asking because their constituents are the major users of the Transit Authority and the MTA. And so many of them get, questions from their constituents about us, and I think that's the whole purpose of why we're going down there, to talk about constituent services, or in our case, to talk about our customers.
Chairman?
Can you talk about
Hey, Alfonso,
the
how are you?
Hi, I'm good. The MTA's plans to fund the overruns and East Side Access?
Well, East Side Access, the amount that we announced on Monday at the committee, we also said at the committee that the bulk of it will be in the next capital program that begins in 2015, and that about $200 million of the money that will be in the current year, and that we're using efficiencies from the other projects within the capital plan to deal with that. Remember, our capital plan is $24 billion, so we're looking the $200 million we have. As you know, we had during the meetings on Monday, we talked about certain contracts that have come in under budget. We'll be able to put that together and not alter the total amount of our capital plan. The bulk of it will, of the additional increase for East Side Access will come from the 2015 capital plan. Hey, Rich.
It's about East Side Access again. Are you surprised or disappointed at what were the difficulties that drove the overruns and the schedule problems? And are you surprised at that at all, or not, or just because of the scope of the project?
Rich, you knew me when I was deputy mayor. Nothing really surprises me anymore that much. But I will tell you what surprised me were decisions made about when the last time they did a risk analysis in 2009, it was determined to budget at a 20% probability of success ratio. I find that hard to believe. We're now budgeting based on 80% probability. Had they done had in 2009 80% probability, the budget would have been $8.1 billion. When we did the new risk analysis, outsiders as well involved. It was determined that the 80% probability was $8.2 billion. It's relatively close in this period of time. We wouldn't be in this situation had they budgeted at 80% probability back in 2009. So what surprises me is, that level of, making that decision. They just postponed what they knew in 2009 until now.
So were they burying their head in the sand on this? Is that what you're saying essentially?
No, they were taking a risk. I mean, they were taking a risk. I'm not sure they were burying the sand. I think they did it with their eyes full open, but they were understanding that what they were doing was risky.
Would you have done that?
I can't say what I would have done in 2009, but I know what I was involved with in 2012, and that is to budget at the 80% level.
Anything else?
Where was that decision made in 2009?
Somewhere in this building.
At any particular office, or
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I generally, I've got enough things to deal with today and looking forward to the future. I don't spend a whole lot of time doing diagnostic work about what happened in the past.
But that's not being done that way anymore, right?
That is correct. And that was an announcement that was made a year ago in all of our projects to go to an 80% number because it's much more realistic. I said it to some reporters on Monday, and I'll repeat it again. I think the era of funding big government projects, the era of underfunding large public work projects is over. And we need to be realistic. Our constituents, our riders, the taxpaying public deserves realistic numbers.
Thank you all. So, could you just, for the uninitiated, I don't know, 20%, 80%, I really don't know. Can you make it simple for the hamburgers among us, will you?
No, I can't say that. Basically, construction experts, engineers, those who have built things their entire life come together and they evaluate what are the potential risks. And then they apply a number to it. And it's kind of like if you've ever taken a class many years ago, 30 years ago, we'd take a class in statistics and you'd make decision trees. And you have to make assumptions. If this happens, it's 30% probability. If that happens, it's 70% probability. So you try to find out what will likely happen. And if all of these things happen, all of the things that we think that could possibly go wrong, assume 80% of them do actually happen and go wrong, or 20%. And you just go through that analysis. And it's scientific engineering doing their best case to determine and predict the future, and they base it against that. It is clearly an art. It's not a science. And that anytime you go into that category, into that area, you've got to be flexible and understand it. But I'd rather look at all of the things that could possibly happen and assume that many of them happen. The reality is, if you go back and look at many of these projects, they do come in the 80% range. So let's be realistic with the taxpayers and our riders.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.